Greetings, YouTube. The Doctor is in. Dr. Urias Papers here, coming at you with another commentary on Dungeons and Dragons. And today on the Doctor Spell Prognosis, we're talking about the spell Reincarnate. We're giving this spell a whopping C+. It's a spell that you probably are never going to use unless you absolutely have to use it. But first, don't forget to hit that subscribe button if you like this video. Hit the like button. If you have any questions or comments, please leave a question or comment. And don't forget to hit that notification bell so you know when I got another video come out. All right. We're giving this a C+. It is a 5th level spell that is usable by druids. And only druids. There are some other classes that can get this spell in other ways, like the bards with the magical secrets, but it's a base druid spell. It has a casting time of 1 hour, which is pretty typical for a lot of these spells that bring things back from the dead. It's a range of touch. It has a verbal, somatic, and material component, which is rare oils and unguents worth at least 1,000 gold pieces, which are consumed by the spell. So again, Raise Dead, which is the same level, and we just did this spell, is 500 gold pieces. But druids do not get Raise Dead. They get Reincarnate. So let's look at that real quick. Let's go back to spells. And let's put Raise Dead in here. R-A-I-S. We'll just put Raise. And I hope I spelled that right. I spelled that right. Okay. And there it is, Raise Dead. And, Bards, Clerics, Paladins, Life Domain, Clerics, Grave Domain, Clerics, and Alchemists, Artificers all get Raise Dead, but not Druids. So, Reincarnate. So, the problem with that, your party is, if you do not have one of those classes, you will not have access to a Raise Dead, and thus this might be your only option. But it is a expensive option. It costs twice as much as Raise Dead does. So, you touch a dead humanoid on a piece of a dead humanoid. Now, this is a difference between this spell and Raise Dead. And again, might be the reason why that you use Reincarnate versus Raise Dead. Raise Dead requires a whole intact body. And if there are pieces of that body that are missing that are required for life, such as the head, the heart, the liver, the pancreas, things like that, then that spell fails. This one only requires a piece of a dead humanoid. So you could have their fingernail, and you could reincarnate them from a fingernail. Provided that the creature has been dead no longer than 10 days, that's the same as Raise Dead, the spell forms a new adult body for it and then calls the soul to enter that body. If the target soul isn't free or willing to do so, the spell fails. We've talked about that with Raise Dead and adventure arcs that you can use with this, like the soul may be held in another dimension by an extra-dimensional evil entity, and the party needs to go and free them. And we've seen that in Critical Role and things like that. The magic fashions a new body for a creature to inhabit, which likely causes the creature's race to change. The DM rolls a D100 and consults the following table to determine what form the creature takes when restored to life. The DM chooses the form. So there's a lot of table variation that can happen here. So GMs, think very carefully before you do this. I like the random option. I don't like just picking it. So we've got Dragonborn, Hill Dwarf, Mountain Dwarf, Dark Elf, also known as Drow, High Elf, Wood Elf, Forest Gnome, Rock Gnome, Half Elf, Half Orc, Lightfoot Halfling, Stout Halfling, Human, and Tiefling. Now keep in mind that this spell came out with the basic rules, which means a lot of this table could actually be expanded in home games to include some other races that were not present when this spell came out. So just keep that in mind as well. Now, another thing that I want to point out that's very different from this spell from previous versions is that if you were reincarnated as one of these things when this spell came out in the original player's handbook, you were stuck with the ability stat bonuses for these spells. But because of a thing in Tasha's Cauldron of Everything that is called character options and ability score increases, that is no longer a thing. So player characters can just choose the ability scores that they want that new race to have. So I could, be reincarnated from a human to a mountain dwarf and still get the same stat bumps to that. I'm just gonna, I may lose a feat because of that, because of the free feat that I get as a variant human. But I may gain some other things like dark vision and some other things that mountain dwarves get. Now, one thing I do want to point out is this is the original table from Advanced Dungeons & Dragons. And yes, this is from my player's handbook that I bought in 1979 when I was just starting to play Dungeons & Dragons a long, long time ago. This is the original druid list of things you could be reincarnated as. And at that time, in first edition Dungeons & Dragons, reincarnation was a 7th level druid spell. And so, we have things on here that are not humanoid in nature. So badger, black bear, brown bear, wild boar, those are not humanoid in nature. Centaurs are, dryads are, eagle is not. Could be an elf, a fawn, which I guess is the same thing as a deer, a fox, a gnome, a hawk, a human. So you had a 13% chance to be reincarnated into a human if you were a human. A lynx, owl, pixie, raccoon, stag, wolf, wolverine, and then use the magic user reincarnation table, which the reincarnate was also a magic user spell at that time. So there's a whole bunch of stuff on here you could get reincarnated as that that you didn't really mean to be reincarnated as. But, if that was what you had at the time, that's what you had at the time and you had to use it. This spell is the same way. If what you have at the time is a reincarnate spell and that's all you got to bring somebody back to life, then this is what you're using. It's an expensive option. It's not an ideal, optimal option, but it is an option nonetheless. All right, that's what I got for everybody today. I appreciate everybody tuning in, and I will catch everybody later.